Tell the world what we're doing.
We're getting food.
How much?
A lot, as you can see.
What did we focus on today?
Canned food that lasts a while.
Yeah, non-perishables.
Canned meats, condiments, things that last.
Yep.
Things that we'll need and want to eat. If inflation happens, if food shortages, anything like that.
Yep, so we'll show you what we got when we get home.
Hello Holy Ghost girls, and welcome back to another video. In the last live I posted, I talked all about my prediction of the coming food shortages, and at the end of that video I shared that I might be willing to show you guys what my family has done to prepare. I got a ton of feedback that you wanted to see that, so in this video I'm going to talk all about emergency preparedness. Now, I'm breaking like the cardinal rule of don't tell anyone about your preps just by sharing this with you, but I believe that God is leading me to show you guys to help someone out there and that He will protect me in doing so. Now, with that said, I want to make it very clear that I am not saying that you need to have everything I have prepared for yourself by the election next week. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I think are most important, but keep in mind that a lot of this stuff is what we have done over the last couple of years. I'm going to show you everything that I can think of, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, but just start somewhere, start chipping away at one piece at a time, and eventually you're going to have a stockpile that you can truly rely on. I'm also going to show you some things that we've thought about in case the grid goes down or we don't have power, we don't have running water, etc. I'm not anticipating that those things are going to happen after the election or in the next few months. That's more of a long-term kind of survival type of preparation. And again, if I'm wrong about the food shortages, which trust me, I hope and pray that I am wrong. But all the signs right now, all the research I've done, everything's kind of pointing to it's going to be a difficult winter. Even if it doesn't turn out to be as difficult as I'm expecting, either we can live off of what we have stocked up for a good while and be plenty happy and content, or I'll have the ability to help others who may need help during this time, or we will be in the position where down the road, if something does happen, we will be very well prepared. If we don't see something happen this winter, if you've read your Bible, we are pretty much guaranteed that there will be a very difficult time at some point. And so if that is during my lifetime, I very much would like to feed my family for as long as I can. So I'm not saying the apocalypse starts next week, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it is wise and prudent to see danger and prepare for it. I also want to address that I know that not everybody can just go out and spend a bunch of money on prepping. And so I feel it kind of necessary to explain our strategy in doing all of this. Basically, before Corona hit, we were on track to buy a house over the summer, and the market here just went haywire. That was not in God's will for us for this year. And so all of our down payment money was set aside. So we've been in the position where we have been able to take a chunk of that down payment money, spend it on prepping with the intentions now that over the next several months we will live off of a lot of the supplies that we have stockpiled, and then save that money back up each month that I would be buying groceries and put it back in the house savings. But when we started prepping, we really did not have extra cash, extra room in the budget. So I truly mean it that if you just chip away, pick one thing that you focus on each paycheck, over time you realize that you actually have a substantial amount set aside. Most of this stuff I'm still actively working on adding to, so at this point I'm just going to show you what we do have and maybe some tips and things I can think of along the way. I'm going to talk about several things today that I can give you guys links to, so I'm going to put those all down in the description. If there's something you're interested in, it should be down there. Firstly, we obviously have a refrigerator. Am I 9? So we obviously have a fridge in our kitchen, and over the last couple of weeks, I have definitely stocked up focusing a lot on foods that are gonna keep well, but also stuff that my family likes to eat immediately. This is probably the fullest that my fridge has ever been, but I'm trying to make it so that at least for the next few weeks over that time of the election, I'm not having to go to the store. Also, our kitchen freezer is extremely full. There's a whole lot of frozen vegetables and then some various other kind of random things that are stored in there because they don't fit in the chest freezer. We recently purchased a chest freezer, which has been a game changer. We were able to find one at Walmart. I don't know if you ever looked at trying to find one at the beginning of the pandemic, but for months they were almost impossible to find. But we finally located one at Walmart. This one in particular happened to be $169. This chest freezer is 5 cubic feet, and in all honesty, I probably would have gone bigger if I had found a freezer that was bigger, but this will work just fine for now. This freezer is literally just full of meat. That's all that's in there is just meat. If you watched my live about the food shortages, meat is one of the things that I anticipate is going to be the most difficult to come by, or at least the most expensive in the coming months, and so we're helping ourselves a lot by having this meat on hand to eat off of instead of purchasing it from the store each week. We were super blessed to find a whole bunch of steaks, and my husband actually filmed it at the time, so I'm gonna let him explain that.
So my wife and I, we are preparing for our freezer, just filling the freezer just in case we have some food shortages this winter. But we decided to go look in the meat section after I got out of the hospital and just see what was in there, see if there was any sales. And I swear God is so good, man. I mean, he brought us to, look at this, $17 ribeye, $10. $17 ribeye, $9. 15, $8. And of course some of these are the bone in, but we even got some choice meat with Angus grass fed. 10, 13 instead. 10, 26, 7, 11, but that's, look at this, 16, 10. Yeah, we went and, yes sir. We're also thinking about our friends, so that's what we do. That's what we do as Christians. We gotta stock up food and think about those around us just in case something happens. And I mean, this is Jesus all the way. I can't believe it, man.
So obviously the chest freezer is going to make a huge difference for us, but I know better than to put all my eggs in one basket. So if we were to lose electricity for whatever reason, obviously all of that food would go bad in a matter of about 2 days. So as much as I'm super excited about all that steak, we also know that it's wise to prepare beyond just those foods that need to be refrigerated or frozen. So the next focus for me was building a substantial stockpile of canned and non-perishable items. In my house, these items are stored in kind of 3 separate areas, and so I'm going to take you guys into each of the 3 and show you kind of what's most important about all 3 types of food that we have. You saw in the beginning of this video that clip of my husband and I at the store, and we were mainly focusing in that trip on canned and non-perishable items. I'm going to take you through this shelf really quickly and just show you some of the things that we have. And we'll go quick here. You can see the cans go back to the back of the shelf. This bottom shelf is pasta sauce and lots of pasta. On this shelf we have a case of mac and cheese, some more pasta, as well as shelf-stable almond milk. This is the meat shelf. This is the biggest concern for me and my family, is having meat. I do have a full case of tuna and Vienna sausages that are just not in this spot, but the honorable mention here is this Keystone beef here in the center. Another YouTuber had recommended this. I have yet to actually taste it, but they said it was really quite good. And the other thing about these is the expiration. So this one is good until 2025, which is not very common for canned goods. The rest of this, the expiration is 22, maybe 23. Canned meat is more expensive, but it's something that we're definitely prioritizing, having a good source of protein. On this shelf we have beans, a little bit of soup, as well as some canned vegetables. Can you tell we like green beans? This shelf has tomato products as well as a bit of canned fruit. This one is currently oatmeal, peanut butter, salt. This right here is a package of dry milk, as well as instant potatoes. I just went back to the store and these are already gone. And then on the top I have a big box of clearance Passover matzos, as well as several cases of ramen noodles. I forgot to mention with canned food that it's important that you buy stuff that your family will actually eat, because you will need to eventually cycle through it, eat the oldest stuff first and replace it. So don't buy a whole lot of stuff that your family doesn't really like. This is my quote-unquote pantry. It's a linen closet that we converted into a place to put food. It's not very organized right now because we just kind of redid everything with the cans. But what's mainly in here is a lot of condiments and things that you add to food. So, right, you can see there's mustard here. There's all kinds of barbecue sauce, ranch, soy sauce. I have Worcestershire. I have maple syrup and jellies. I have vanilla extract. I have salsa and sesame oil and balsamic vinegar and mayo and all these things that are really going to help to also add some variety to the rest of the food that we have stored. And don't forget toilet paper. This is not all the toilet paper that we have, but I've been grabbing a pack every time I go to the store so that when the toilet paper rush comes, I'm not out there taking it from other people. I've got plenty at home and I don't need to worry about it. Okay, finishing up here, I just want to show you, this is the last cabinet of food that we have set aside. Mostly these are just big items that don't really fit on the other shelves. So I have this big bag of flour that I'm working on putting into containers. This is the first one I've set aside. Put the best by date on it, right, so I remember when we need to use it by. A couple of big cans of beans. Hiding back here, these are number 10 cans of green beans, a huge thing of peanut butter, and then several big bottles of protein powder. That's one thing that my family really needs because my boys have to drink protein shakes to take a specific medicine. And so instead of fighting everybody and just buying protein for no reason at the store when everyone panics, we have a good little amount set aside for ourselves for when we need it. Hiding back there is my emergency coffee because nobody wants to go without coffee. There's my cases of tuna and Vienna sausages. This is a spaghetti squash. I'm hoping to grab a couple more of these. These will keep in a dark cupboard like this for 3 months or longer. So this is really awesome to have things like spaghetti squash, potatoes, onions set aside like this. And then finally, this is a big tub of spices. There's all kinds of different things in there. Lots and lots of garlic powder because that's my favorite thing to cook with. But there's cinnamon, chili powder, cumin, onion, lemon garlic pepper, bouillon, ranch, taco seasoning, everything you could think of. Spices are cheap, and so I stock up on these a few at a time every time I go to the grocery store. The biggest thing that this will do is help to add variety to your food, especially if you're eating some of the bulk food I'm going to talk about. Being able to spice it differently is gonna keep you from having what's called appetite fatigue, where you actually kind of can't eat the same thing over and over and over again. So this is gonna make your survival stockpile food much more palatable. This is kind of embarrassing, but I'm gonna show you anyways. I want to address just for a second that I know that space is a concern for many people. It's also a concern for us. We do currently live in a 1-bedroom townhouse that has a loft. And so this is our second bathroom that we basically use as a storage room because my son just uses our bathroom. So yes, all this stuff is crammed in the shower because that's the best that I can do right now. The reason I'm showing you this is because you can see hiding underneath down here are our long-term food grade buckets. And I'm going to show you one that's not in here just to show you kind of an example of how those look. The last type of food storage that we have is long-term food storage.
We're keeping our long-term food in these food grade buckets. This is really important because a regular paint bucket has BPA, which can leach into your food. But let me show you, this is literally a bucket of rice.
This is food that is stored in 5-gallon buckets. It's bulk food. So what we have right now is somewhere around 50 pounds of rice, 50 pounds of beans, and 50 pounds of oats. We also have the gamma lids as well as oxygen absorbers, which helps to properly store this food so that it could last up to 20 years.
There's many ways to seal up your long-term food storage. The way that we have gone is with these oxygen absorbers. As soon as you open this, you have to use it within 15 minutes. Otherwise, they're rendered ineffective. So we have not quite sealed up our food with the oxygen absorbers and the gamma lids because we were working on creating more buckets to go ahead and do this all at one time.
In my opinion, this is really like the best way to get the most bang for your buck, so to speak, in terms of food storage. You just have to be mindful that you would be eating the same thing every single day. It wouldn't be the most fun, but you wouldn't starve. Having these buckets of food extends our food storage by several months. So we've covered food. Let's talk about water. Water is kind of tricky when it comes to storage for survival purposes because they estimate, you need about 1 gallon a day per person for drinking and also cooking. So you saw I have a lot of pasta and obviously beans and rice, and all those things would take water to cook. Very important part of it. So currently we do have about 15 cases of water bottles plus several extra gallons of stored water, which is not nearly enough. When I was a little girl growing up, we had those 50-gallon rain barrels in my basement, but they took up so much space, and as it stands in the house I live in now, we would either have to have those like literally in my bedroom as part of our furniture because we can't store them outside. They would freeze and then they would be unusable and they might burst, and there's just a lot of problems with that. So the best solution that we kind of have right now is we do have a life straw. I'll include a link down in the description. They're awesome. They filter all kinds of contaminants, viruses, etc. So you could use that to suck up water, filter, and drink it. It's not the best solution right now for filtering water if we needed to cook it. Obviously you can always boil water, but still that's not going to be a foolproof method. We're still looking into buying a Berkey filter, but just like everything, they're kind of hard to get a hold of right now. But that at least would be one solution that we could clean, purify larger amounts of water to use for drinking and cooking. In my area, we do live fairly close to a lake, a pond, and a couple of other water features that if worse came to worse, we could be using some of that water. But the jury's still out on how to store more, what's the most effective way, what would work the best for us, because you need a lot more water than you realize, and water is really important.
We've talked about food, we've talked about water, but if you've ever been in a power outage, you know that when you go to cook something, you realize it's almost impossible because these days we rely so heavily on electricity to heat anything up. So there's a lot of options for cooking in an emergency. Mainly if you have a barbecue, that's great. However, my family does not have a barbecue. The only thing we have was a fire pit, like a backyard style, sit around, have a bonfire, make s'mores kind of fire pit. And I knew that was going to be inefficient because it creates a very large, smoky, conspicuous fire, as well as it requires a lot of firewood to be able to keep it going. And so to do that multiple times a day to cook was just kind of unrealistic for us. So as I continue to research and look into some different ideas, I found the plans for a rocket stove. There's many types of rocket stoves, but clearly this one is made of cinder blocks, which makes it durable and extremely inexpensive. Altogether, for the bricks, I paid about $7. I found the design for the rocket stove online, and I'll go ahead and pop a picture on the screen if you want to screenshot this for yourself because it's super easy. But I'll also put a link down in the description of a great video that teaches you kind of how you put it together. These rocks are up here because we had started a fire in here to test it, to play with it. We put those on there to suffocate the fire and put it out. But you start the fire inside this chamber and it draws the air in up through here, so the flames and the heat is focused up on the top. So you can put a burner up on here and place a cooking pot that's going to grab the heat and obviously heat up, cook, allow you to cook food, water, what have you on top. What's really nice about the rocket stove is that you almost can't tell that it's burning if you're not looking directly at it. So it's very discreet, there's minimal smoke, and it's also a lot more efficient than something like a fire pit would be, because you're just feeding the logs and the sticks into this chamber. Again, I just found these cinder blocks at Lowe's, so especially if you're on a budget, I think the rocket stove is an excellent, easy to prepare option. You can just keep the cinder blocks in your backyard or in your basement or what have you, and I am super pleased with how easy and inexpensive this was. If you've watched any of my vlogs, you know that this summer we started our first garden. A little bit prompted with the first outbreak. Obviously, there's nothing like food shortages to prompt you to maybe realize that you should learn to grow some of your own food. So we started our first garden this summer, and I learned a lot. Mainly, the biggest thing that I learned was that if I was going to feed my family off my garden, I would need to plant way more than I did this past season. But I think growing a garden is one of the best ways to continue to provide for your family. And you know, if you look back to the Great Depression, that's one of the main ways that people continued to subsist on their own land, was that they had seeds. Fortunately, our first frost was a couple of days ago, and so all of my plants are basically done for. The leaves are falling off the trees right now, and clearly my garden beds need some love and attention, but everything has basically died. So we're heading into winter, and I'm sad to say that the garden is ready to meet its destiny, but we will be preparing for spring to start all over again, and this time on a much bigger scale. I'm expecting that there will be a pretty difficult time getting seeds this coming spring, but if you can get your hands on some seeds, I would highly recommend that you think forward, start planning right now for your summer, spring garden. Because I'm very keen on having seeds to start my garden next year, we went ahead and invested in this ARC Heirloom Seed Kit. There's a couple different versions of this, a smaller one, a medium one, and then this is the largest. This is actually 50,000 heirloom seeds. They're organic, non-GMO, and heirloom, which is super important because regular hybrid seeds don't typically reproduce. So when you have heirloom seeds like this, you can plant them and then properly propagate them so that you can continue to have a replenishable supply of your own seeds. This one had a pretty hefty price tag, but it has literally everything you can think of inside of it. It's full of these little envelopes of seeds. I haven't even opened this and gone through everything that's in there. I will have to inventory this at some point, but I know that if I want seeds for it, it's in here. This is packaged to last up to 10 years, but I know that we're gonna break into it in about 6 months or so. The next thing I want to share with you is the LDS Preparedness Manual. This is basically a Mormon survival guide. It was created and distributed by the Mormon Church, which we're not Mormons, but Mormons often have very large families, and it's something that they are very keen on preparing for future emergencies. This thing is 222 pages, and it is chock full of information. It has all different info in it about food storage, water storage, bug out bags, survival kits, even down to what to do in the case of a biological attack or a nuclear attack. They've got it covered. There's way more info in here than I could ever possibly tell you guys in one YouTube video. So I highly recommend you do what I do, print this out, put it in sheet protectors, keep this binder, and of course read through it. Get familiar with the information that they're sharing. I will put a link down in the description so you can grab a copy for yourself. Another thing I'm really enjoying is this Country Wisdom and Know-How book. My mom gave me this, and it has 8,167 useful skills in it. There's info in here about baking bread, skinning animals, setting traps, making soap, building furniture, you name it, all kinds of stuff. And so this is along the lines of just having resources, books, printed materials that you can reference if you couldn't pull up Google and use your phone to look something up. I know for sure that I'd really like to get a first aid medical type of resource along those lines. I also want to give a shout out real quick to couponing. So Couponing has been extraordinarily helpful in building a survival stockpile where we have extra things that we mostly got for extremely cheap or free. So all of this cereal right here was all couponed, and if you can see all the way up to the ceiling there is a bunch of feminine products. So we're stocked up on that. We are good when it comes to that stuff. Same principle when it comes to personal care items. This is all stuff that I've couponed. It was close to free. We have more soap than we could possibly use at this point. More stuff I've couponed. This is a full drawer of toothpaste and tons of deodorant and razors. So we're set on all of those. I also just want to remind you that if you have medicines that you use often, it's a good idea to stockpile those. There's so much stuff in here. A lot of it was couponed. But there's also things like vitamins, cold medicine, pain relief, hot patches, all kinds of different things that were really difficult to find at the beginning of the first wave of the pandemic. I also just want to briefly mention that you should consider having a way to protect yourself and defend your stockpile of supplies. I'm choosing not to show you what that looks like for my family because it's going to look different for anybody who's watching depending on what state or country that you live in and also what you're comfortable with. But in a true emergency situation, people become savage, and it's important that you have a way to protect yourself, your family, and your hard-earned food. Last but not least, I think most people probably forget in an emergency situation that they would need a toilet solution. If power were to go out, most people who are on any kind of city water would only have water pressure for maybe about a day. After that, you're not going to have running water and you're not going to be able to flush the toilet. So I know this is really silly, but we found this at Walmart and I'm actually kind of excited about it. This is a toilet seat cover that fits on a 5-gallon bucket. So you pretty much use it just like a regular toilet. I would recommend that you put probably a trash bag inside, and then I've seen people discuss using cat litter or wood shavings inside to kind of cover it up every time you use it to help eliminate the smell. But it clips closed, it works perfect, and that would be a pretty decent bathroom solution if you couldn't use your regular toilet. This was only like 10 bucks.
So there you go, guys. I know that was a lot, but I hope that that gave you a good look into what my family is doing for emergency and survival preparedness. Remember, I'm hoping that I am massively over-prepared and then I'm in the position to help other people. What I hope to encourage you to do is just start today and do something. Do something that your future self will thank you for. Put away some kind of food, some kind of water, and slowly work on building yourself your own stockpile. I think there will come a day when the people who prepared will be very, very grateful that they did so. So that's all for this one. God bless you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.